Nicole, questions, thoughts you have?
Really, just my thoughts are, I can't wait for everyone in my generation to hear this, especially because typically my generation is very, how do I say this nicely? We can be entitled, we can be lazy, we're different.
Did you know that my generation, white males over 50, can also fall into that trap very, very easily, Nicole?
Yeah, I think everyone can.
You're supposed to say, no, I've never experienced something like that. What are you talking about? It's interesting where Daniel Kwok, he's a young Korean guy, entrepreneur, and he was at a coffee connection, and I said something about Peter Schmidt, who is an amputee, unbelievable guy, has a great story, said he wanted to be an international speaker and author, but he wouldn't do what, I'm like, I'm an international speaker and author, I know how to do it, but he wouldn't do what I directed him to do. And I'm like, Peter's right there at the coffee connection, Daniel Kwok is right there too, and I'll never forget, I said, I don't understand why Peter won't go ahead and do what's directed, like to get what he says he wants. And Daniel looked at me and smiled like he's in 22, 23. And he's like, well, I know why. And I'm like, okay, why? He says, well, I'm not sure you're going to want to hear it. I'm like, I do. And he said, it's because he's a white male over 50. I'm like, okay. What does that mean? He's like, he's lazy. And I started laughing. I had never, ever experienced that thought hitting my brain, ever. I'm like, you got to be kidding. My dad was one of the hardest, probably the hardest worker in his mid-60s, late 60s. He could lay block, like big concrete block, like crazy, and nobody could keep up with him. Guys in their 20s, like it was crazy. But my dad was lazy, not mentally, because he really did work mentally, not spiritually, maybe, I don't know. Emotionally, yeah, he was lazy emotionally, and he was lazy relationally too. Big time. Big time. It's funny because everybody knew my dad as a hard worker, and so, I'd say, yeah, my dad was lazy, and they're like, what? So people think, so he came from a generation where physical labor, was really, really important, and I value that. Like my dad gave me that as a gift. But relationally and emotionally, I don't think anyone ever taught him, or he never learned how to work relationally and emotionally. So each generation, each gender, each ethnic group works hard in certain areas but's lazy in other areas. And typically, like Nicole was very gentle. How do we say it? She didn't want to offend anybody, didn't want to create any anxiety for somebody. With me, I'm a white male over 50. I don't care if I create anxiety for other white males over 50. Like, I've been paying into Social Security my whole life, and if I get it, I'm going to be thankful. I mean, I'm just going to be grateful and thankful because I'm going to be like, I'm 56 years old. I never thought I'd get it. Like, if I get a dime of Social Security, I'm going to be thankful and grateful. But, Mark, you've put in over 40 years of paying into it. You don't expect it? I'm like, no, I don't. When you think of that conversely, where people don't pay anything, don't work anything. I've worked 40 years and put money into it. You think of the mindset that's different in that type of thing. Kind of crazy. Sorry to interrupt, Nicole. Keep going. You rock, girl.
No, that was really all I had. It's just totally different because my mom always tells me the story about how she used to walk to school in the snow and the storms and all of that, and then from school she'd walk right to the restaurant and work, and then from there she'd walk home, no matter rain, snow, anything. And that's what she did.
Right.
matter. She had to do it.
Right. Right. And so, interesting. Tom, questions, thoughts you have?
Did you walk to school in the snow?
Did I? Tom's tempting and taunting me. Tom, I had paper routes in Chicago. And I mean, the Chicago Tribune, like I hated the holidays. I could barely hold one, like a whole one. And I put it in my bike and I had to go ahead and ride around. And my parents, like during the, I had like 40 deliveries and I could only fit 10 in my bike. I wiped out so many times it was all over. Like that taught me, Tom, I did not want to do blue collar. I appreciate blue collar so much. Father-in-law is that, but not only walk to school, Tom, I had to deliver papers. In paper route, rain, shine, it doesn't matter. And then people would complain and whine, and I got chased by dogs. Oh, don't even get me going, Tom. Sorry.
Well, I did too. I had to walk to school in the snow.
Right. Now it's like, can we go ahead and, get an umbrella to walk them out because we don't want them to go ahead and melt or something. It's like we build this.
Everybody gets driven to school now.
Right. It's just crazy.
I have a junior high and a high school that's within a block and a half of my house, and I live in a gated area. So when I come out, if I come out the wrong gate at the wrong time, it's like a parking lot.
Yeah, can't figure out, Tom, why we have obesity issues here. Sorry. Emily, thoughts, questions you have?
I don't think I have anything else.
Rosanna, emotionally. So our son died 3.5 months ago.
Yeah. Emotionally.
Yeah, how do we work through that in a very tragic, brutal death? Gunshot to the head. Took 3 weeks for the police to rule it a suicide. Our 19-year-old son was in the room. You talk about emotional, relational, spiritual, mental trauma. Like how do you and I even function, much less get on a call? And I've got another one this afternoon. I've got another one on Thursday. How do you and I handle it, sweetheart? Like, how do we function? Like, it's like, how do we handle that?
Well, I'm always asking you, how do you do it? And you say, do I have a choice? And so it's basically making a choice to function, because there are obligations, there are people depending on us.
Not really, though. I mean, our kids, all 7 of our kids, well, 6 now. Jonathan went off and died, but 6 of our kids, and he was totally independent of us, had a great job. His last year on this planet was just happiest year. It was unbelievable. He had worked so hard for so long to get his business, and then his job, he was doing everything he dreamed of doing. Like, really? And so our kids and our grandkids, none of them really need us. Who's depending on us, Rosanna?
Well, I guess we're depending on us.
We are?
Yeah, we kind of have to go ahead and function. I mean, it's important to function and continue to function, because there are other people that go through difficulties like this too, and maybe we're the answer. I don't know.
Oh, is what you're saying, that there's strangers, there's strangers, like when we talk about caring, like we care about, like Emily's, a single mom. She has 2 amazing sons, just two amazing sons, and or I think 5 and 8. And I remember when Jonathan was 5 and 8. Tom, I think I've heard you kind of tear up maybe 3 times in 15 years, maybe 4. One of the times you teared up is when you were reflecting back at being the president of the largest real estate franchise in the world, and the sacrifices that you made as a C-level executive, and you started tearing up, and I think you said something like, I'm not sure, if the sacrifices were worth it, but maybe I didn't get that, or maybe it was so moving to me, like you were tearing up. I'm like, oh my gracious. I don't know if you remember that, Tom.
I don't.
So C-level executives, like, it was interesting, Tom, in a Wall Street Journal article, there were 2 women who were highly educated who went ahead and wrote an article about how women breaking the C-level, the executive, the top level, the Fortune 500 or the Fortune 100 companies, and how, these women shouldn't have to choose between, their families and, C-level executive. I started laughing. I'm like, why should they not have to make choices like that? Like, men have to make those choices every day. And, I went ahead and moved my company office to my home office when we were homeschooling the 7 kids. And I almost lost my company when I made that choice to go ahead and be with my kids. But it's never a choice that I've ever regretted, even though I almost lost my company. So any suggestions, Tom, for C-level executives in work and family, and how do you keep it balanced? How do you make the sacrifices that you need to make to see the success and to please the shareholders? And now you not only have to please the shareholders, now you got to please the government and, everybody else on the planet too.
Well, I think my answer now will be completely different than it would have been a few years ago.
Okay.
And the answer that I give now is that you definitely, if you really want to succeed and do all the things you just talked about, you have to have work and life balance, and you just have to do that. Or you get to the point that you sit back and say, on one side or the other, was it really worth it? And looking back on it now, I think if you can continue to keep your personal life in a balanced mode as much as possible, and also keep your business life in a balanced mode as much as possible, and communicate with whoever your spouse or significant other, whoever it is that you come home to, a lot. And I think things become a lot easier. I think we were I look back on mine, I was so driven to be successful that I thought that's what the most important thing was. And it really wasn't. It was about enjoying life. When you really think about it, you don't have a lot of life, and you never know, as you two have found out, you never know when it ends.
Right.
And you got to live and enjoy it. And it's not about money. I've had it, I've lost it, I have it. And even when the loss was gone, I still lived. I still had me. I still had people around me. And it was just a matter of understanding that It wasn't the the whatever they call that thing. It wasn't anybody's fault but my own. I made bad decisions, and that's what happened. And if I was going to get it back, I knew I could because I had it before. I got to make better decisions and understand why I made the bad ones.
Right.
So that's a long explanation, but
I love that. Rosanna, when I see our kids that have one or two, or our oldest daughter has 4 children, and I see other families that have children, Rosanna, how did you and I handle 7 kids? And even when I was working, because a company was going to go out of business, like I had to work 80, 90, even 110-hour weeks. How during those times, Rosanna, when I was working 80, 90, 80 to over 100 hours a week, how did I never, ever miss a baseball game or a soccer game or any type of thing there? How did I interact with how did you and I pull it off, Rosanna?
One day at a time, and we took and made priorities for certain things.
How did you and I go ahead and have date nights like every Friday? How when Jonathan was 13 years old, and we took a 3-week, Jonathan and I took a 3-week trip to Africa, and you and I had a date night. You watched a movie here in the Chicago area, and I watched a movie over in Africa. Like, how did we do all of that, Rosanna? Like, the pain, like 3.5 months, you'd think, the pain of the suddenness of it, the trauma of it, the violence, the brutalness of it, everything. Like, you'd think that the first day would be the hardest, and then the first week would be, still really hard, and the second week. But you and I both agree, and many of the kids agree, that it's harder now after 3.5 months than it was the first week. Like, how did we do it? How did we, like, I realized, like, we were crying yesterday, or I was crying yesterday, and Rosanna and she and I were talking, and I said, it hurts so much, and I never forget, like a few days after Jonathan died, Tom said, I said, I'm healed, and he said, what does that mean? And I think healing mean now, Tom, like I don't have anger or bitterness, like towards anybody. There's some people that need to face some things, some choices they made. I think they need to come account, not for Jonathan's benefit or mine. I mean, it's not going to bring him back, but for their own healing. And so I think that we're hurting so much because we had so many crazy memories. Like, it's like he lived such an amazing life for 30 years. And I remember when he moved out to Utah with his first wife, and everybody except Rosanna, but all the kids flew out, I flew out, and I remember her uncle saying, you guys are the weirdest family. Like, okay, why? It's like all of your kids have come out and hung out with Jonathan, and you're out here too with John. I've never seen a family, so interconnected. Like, you guys are like, it's not one big happy family. Oh my gracious. For sure, not known as a happy family, but you talk about a deep, deep relationships that we have with one another and with him, and this is only building them deeper and deeper than they already were. I don't think, Rosanna, you know the secret to why it hurts so much, but it's not negative hurt. It's not bad hurt. It's not bad pain. I mean, I hope it gets worse. I mean, it's crazy on how much pain-wise, because it's not bad. It's like he meant so much to all of us. Like, people are like, well, like they don't realize how deep of a relationship. I think many parents, like I'm so grateful for every day that we had with him, that we have with him still, the memories, it's insane. But I don't think, Rosanna, you understand the secret to why it all worked so well, meaning that we have so many memories and there's so much significance. I don't know that you know the secret.
Probably not.
The secret is what's been the economic engine for the last 29 years for us. It's action vision. So we were in our little first house we ever bought, young couple. I don't even know if the first one was born yet. If they were just little ones, like babies. And we were sitting in the living room with Pastor, Dale Williams and Shirley, and we were doing a scoring of our action vision, and we said, here is our life vision, and this is how we're going to go ahead and accomplish it. This is how we're going to have a personal relationship with God. This is how we're going to have an amazing marriage. This is how we're going to go ahead and have amazing children and relationship and connection. This is how we're going to go ahead and, have successful careers and have an economic engine and provide a lot of value to a lot of people. And this is how we're going to reach the world and touch every single person in the world, one person at a time, make a huge difference in every aspect of life in a fun and exciting way. And 7.8+ billion people. This is how we're going to do everything. We're going to have it all. And every month we'd get together and we'd score that plan and say, here's what it is. It built it in to my DNA. Like it built it into my DNA that you got to work hard in everything, Mark. You got to work hard in your marriage. You got to work hard with your kids. And when Jonathan went through high school and some really tough times, and then his first wife and what happened there, and a camping trip where, whoa, that was brutal. Woke me up at 2:30 in the morning, and we went on a 3-hour walk, and it was just so much pain. Oh, the pain that kid went through. A lot because of other people's choices, and he seemed to have a hard time making choices with women. He seemed to have, he chose some sweet girls, but messed up. My gracious, messed up. And so that vision, having clarity of that vision, and then action, like what actions did we need to take? Like what did I need to take as a husband? What did I need to take as a father? And how are all 7 of my kids very different? Why? How do I impact them? How do I give them everything that they need? Not what they want, but really what they need. And how do I have the wisdom of all of that? Just crazy. Wow. Antoinette, any questions you have or thoughts?
I'm good.
Emily, questions or thoughts you have? Rosanna, thoughts or questions, anything you have?
I think I'm good.
Is this not the coolest season in our entire life, Rosanna? No?
No.
No? Okay, I can see that. It's okay. I think it's the coolest season we've ever been in. It's the hardest. It's the hardest without question. But man, is it testing our marriage and strengthening our marriage, and to see our 6 kids respond, to see our grandkids who just miss him so much, to see all of that come around and to say, wow, and the impact we're going to have on total strangers and how we can help prevent, what happened to Jonathan. Like that, it's so meaningful. Like every moment of my life, like every breath that I have has significance in our marriage, and like so much significance in the kids, so much in our grandkids, and and how God loves every single child on the planet as much as he does our grandkids. And how we are, if we want to leave a legacy, it's like, impacting the world after we leave, like Jonathan. Like it's true. He's making a bigger impact after his death than even while he was alive, which is just awesome. Like if people really understood the depth that he had and what he went through and how he fought through things, like if people understood his heart. Oh my gracious. Tom, questions, thoughts?
It's just thank you for sharing, but I have to leave. I apologize for that.
No, we're good. We're done. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate it. All right, so this is really cool. And so next week, or next lesson, could be next week, depending on how quick you're going through the lessons. Could be right now you go through. So next is going to be caring. Maybe the most, like this is the year of caring. And so this lesson, like I thought I was a caring person before, but oh my gracious, so amazing. Like so amazing. So definitely dive into this and then share this. Like who else would benefit from this, right? Like who else would benefit from this? Like think about other people, care about other people, go through that. If you have any questions, feel free to connect with the individual who invited you to participate. Connect with your art mentor, your two art buddies in going through this. Share with them, help them. Like what's movement? What are you passionate about? Like get a movement going behind you for sure. If you have any questions, connect with the individual who invited you, or you can call toll free 888-230-2300. That's 888-230-2300. Or if you're calling in outside the U.S., call the U.S.-based number 630-393-9909. That's 630-393-9909. And always remember, we can accomplish so much more together than we ever could on our own. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.
This session is no longer being recorded.
Okay. Internet dropped off.